I have forgotten who I am. The same beautiful language I spoke so fluently at age 6 has been stunted, left at a small child's comprehension ability. Grammatical errors in my so-called mother tongue build up mistake by mistake until my words don't make sense to the average Hindi speaker. Main bhul gaya hu, no, main bhul gayi hu. I have forgotten. The same Hindu myths my mother used to tell me to help me sleep better each night are now buried away in one of the corners of my mind, still there, but I have to dig and poke and pull to remember them, to remember how the stories of the four-handed Ganesha made me laugh until my ribs hurt, feel pride that this Hindu god was an Indian child just like me, and forget the fact that these stories gave me a home that existed within my mother's words and the space between our arms as they intertwined in the last few seconds before I fell asleep. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I forgot it all. My forgetfulness is not a fault of my culture. It's a fault of the assimilation perpetuated by those who sit above me in our self-imposed social hierarchy. It's the fault of those who spoiled the story of Krishna taming the serpent Kaliya, because the stories that shaped my mother's religion were dumb. Those who said my skin wasn't a nice brown, it was an ugly brown, because it didn't look like the golden brown of a fresh girl from a vacation in Australia. Those who said my pimple looks like an Indian dot because it was in the center of my forehead. Those who said I couldn't play house with them because it wouldn't make sense for two white people to be in a family with someone who looked like me. Here lies the intersection of racism and individuality, whereby the individuality is squandered. My experience is not isolated. My experience is a mere flimsy thread in He Taura Whiri, the plaited rope. In He Taura Whiri is woven the experience of tamariki from across Aotearoa. Each thread represents a child who has been targeted by prejudice, and these threads are woven together to form a strong, thick, tight rope, a product of negligence. The negligence of governments, authorities, and systems, a rope strengthened by sobering statistics from across Aotearoa. More than 1 in 3 Pacific and more than 1 in 4 Māori and Asian adults experience racial discrimination in their lifetime. Evidence of education inequality lies in the consistent underachievement of our marginalized students on every measure: NCA achievement, retention, attendance, and classroom engagement, not to mention the disturbing presence of colorism in not only our classrooms, but society at large. Our rangatahi and their futures have been neglected if this is the world we are sending them out into. Don't get me wrong, we've made progress. If you take a look around you and look at the cross-section of diversity in this very room and compare it to what it may have looked like a mere 10, 20, or 30 years ago, we've made significant strides. New Zealand witnessed a huge shift away from its former Anglo-centric immigration policies and is now a country home to a spectrum of ideologies, cultures, and traditions. But my friends, there is still work to do. Ahead of us unfurls a rope, a plaited rope. The first 2 strands represent the 2 parties of Te Tiriti or Waitangi, the Māori and the Pākehā. Amongst these 2 strands, we perhaps weave in the experience of a brown 6-year-old on her primary school playground, the experience of a Pacifica student who is marginalized and struggling at school, perhaps your own experience, the experience of 2 brave immigrants leaving their home to pave a prosperous future for their children, the wisdom of our Māori ancestors, te taura tangata, kia whiria te muka tangata, kia kotahi ai te taura pāpori. Let each of our threads become woven into one rope. This rope is constructed with fibers of knowledge, experience, and diversity, and this rope becomes a symbol of not negligence, but unity. Te taura tangata, he taura whiri. Using this rope, we can construct a blanket, paraikite, to become the new social, multicultural fabric of Aotearoa, one we must enrich with our stories and ideas. As Galileo once said, I have never met a man so ignorant that I could not learn something from him. Everyone has a story worth sharing. Everyone, regardless of where society has slotted them in the game of life, has value to offer. Thus, everyone must contribute to this rope of unity. Allow me, a former brown 6-year-old on our primary school playground, to take a step towards this enrichment and share with you some of my ideas. Now, recently, I was posed with the question of what I would do to address issues of inequality in Aotearoa if I had unlimited resources and powers. And so I imagined a nationwide initiative. Allow me to break it down into a few steps for you. Step number 1, mandate equitable representation. This initiative would work with government bodies and organizations nationwide to ensure that all levels of media, government, and educational institutions reflect the diversity of the societies that they serve. This means putting in place equitable quotas and guidelines to ensure that all stakeholders are represented, especially in decision-making processes. Step number 2, to establish education and mentorship programs in order to level the playing field. This would involve leadership programs targeted specifically at minority groups to equip our youth to take on leadership positions in the workforce and further equip them for tertiary education. And step number 3, to fund local projects against discrimination. By funding our local projects, we take on a grassroots approach that works towards eradicating racism from the ground up. Now, I was asked what I would do if I had unlimited resources and powers. But do you notice that the word unlimited creates limitations? Why is there a need for our solutions to be hypothetical? The rangatahi of Aotearoa say that it's time to stop pondering and start doing. I ask you, instead of taking a step back, blaze forward and make the action we dream about a reality. In weaving together our stories and struggles, we not only recognize the past, but help shape a future that's rich in diversity and unity. In recognizing our shared stories and struggles, we can construct an Aotearoa that reflects the beauty of every thread within it. Let's turn the hypothetical into a reality, move from reflection to action, and build the paraikite for our future generations to thrive under. Kia ora.